2023 is coming to a close, so today I decided to share 9 things that I've learned this year that will hopefully make me a better investor in 2024. And I divided them into 3 categories. 3 best books I read this year, 3 best companies I discovered this year, and 3 best investment podcasts I started to listen to this year. So let's start with the books. And the first one that I would encourage you to read is The Most Important Thing Illuminated. It is a new version of Howard Marks' book with extra comments from such investors as Joel Greenblatt or Seth Klarman. It is a very interesting book that really shows you why this game is simple but not easy. He talks a lot about second-level thinking, which gives you a real advantage over an average investor. He talks about traits of character that are needed to achieve exceptional results, and he really gets to the bottom of his investing process. Next book is Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, a Nobel Prize winner in economics. It is not really a book about investing, but it explains how our brain works. Or maybe a better way to put it is how 2 different systems of thinking work in our brain. System 1 is fast and intuitive, while System 2 is slower and more logical. This book shows how those systems interact and influence each other and, at the end, create our decisions. And such knowledge allows us to find different and new ways of looking at problems. It is a great addition to the second-level thinking concept that Howard Marks talks about in his book. The third book is Warren Buffett and the Interpretation of Financial Statements, written by Mary Buffett and David Clark. This book, on the other hand, is very focused on investing. It is a simple guide to financial statements, and it shows the way that Warren Buffett thinks about each line in the income statement, cash flow statement, and the balance sheet. If you want to analyze companies, value them, and really understand what is happening within, then this is a very useful position. Okay, so now let's get to 3 companies that caught my attention in 2023. First up is Smith & Wesson. I got interested in it after discovering that one of my favorite investors, Norbert Lu, bought it in Q2 2022, and then he added substantially to this position in the next quarter. After that, I started to dig in and found that it is not only rather cheap, but that the fundamentals of the business are really nice. This year, the stock is up around 40%, but it still looks rather on the cheap side, though it is worth noting that the recent results they just published are a little less encouraging. The second company that I find very interesting is Ulta Beauty. This is another company with exceptional financial health. And I like the simplicity of the business and that they don't use any debt to grow. They just do it organically. And even though they are the biggest player in the US right now, there seems to be a lot of space to grow outside the country. And of course, I find it interesting because it is also cheap, but not as cheap as Smith & Wesson. And the third company is British American Tobacco. Now, that is a little bit of a different story. It is a dividend investment. With a dividend yield of around 9%, this is very similar to a dividend we can get from Altria. But British American Tobacco is much cheaper right now. Also, they are focused on the global market, not just the US, so the growth possibilities are probably bigger. And the fact that the stock is down around 28% this year makes it an interesting investment opportunity, in my opinion. If you want to learn more about any of those companies, the links to the analysis will be in the description and at the end of the video. Okay, and now let's take a look at 3 podcasts I discovered in 2023. First one is called Richer, Wiser, Happier, and it is created by William Green, who is the author of the book Richer, Wiser, Happier, and he also wrote with Guy Spier The Education of a Value Investor. William Green gets absolutely the best guests on his podcast. People like Guy Spier, Howard Marks, Ray Dalio, Joel Greenblatt, and many more. He's so prepared that they feel comfortable and they trust him. So sometimes the conversations go beyond investing and they touch on other important and fascinating topics. And William Green also talks about his investing mistakes and life struggles, so you can get a human perspective. It is not really about investing strategies, but more about finding yourself and creating a richer, wiser, and happier life. I highly recommend it. Second podcast that caught my attention is called The Memo by Howard Marks. So, Howard Marks again. He writes memos to his investors, partners, and for many years to anyone that is willing to read them. And this podcast lets you listen to his newest memos as well as his older memos. And what is even better, there are conversations with Howard Marks called Behind the Memo, where he comments on them and on the times when they were written. You can get so much insight thanks to that. I really think it is a great way to spend your time. And the last podcast I wanted to mention is called Value Investing with Legends. It is a podcast created by the faculty of Columbia Business School. So a place where value investing was created by Benjamin Graham and David Dodd. And this podcast also has some great guests, including Thomas Russo, Ray Dalio, or Monish Pobrai. And what I really like about this podcast is the fact that they don't only talk about investment philosophy, but in many cases, the life story of the investor. And that in itself can be fascinating. So I hope you found something interesting for yourself in this video. I really encourage you to read those books, listen to those podcasts, and maybe watch my analysis of those companies to see if you also find them interesting. This is the last video of the year. So Happy New Year, enjoy this time, and I hope that your 2024 will be beautiful, exciting, and full of opportunities. Thank you so much for this year, for your support, your ideas, and your feedback. Happy New Year, and see you in the next one.